Hello. So today I posted earlier for the Tuesday Ask all about touring. I started the Besties survey a couple days ago, and so many of you have been saying that your goals are to get into touring or tour managing, and so I figured it would be a great topic to use for the Tuesday Ask prompt. And the conversation there has been awesome. So I figured I'd jump on here and just talk about touring and see if you guys have any questions. And I'll kind of tell you what I know, and we can go from there. So I guess while people are hopping on here, I will give you a little background on my tour experience and where I'm coming from. So in college, which was about 6 years ago now, I got an internship, I guess 7 years. I got an internship at the local theater, and they had live shows only 4 times a year. So it was a small venue, small town, but when they had live shows, they had some pretty big acts. So I got to know all about what a writer is. I got to interact with the artist like during the day of the show. Got to be backstage with them, got to be part of the marketing before the show, and all of that. And so when I graduated and moved to Nashville, I still didn't really know much about anything in the music industry, but I landed an internship at a management firm, and that eventually turned into a full-time job. So I got to see the behind the scenes of the venue, and then in management, I got to see the behind the scenes of what went on the artist side. So I've seen a little bit of both, and I've been with the artists that I work for in management. I've been at their shows kind of behind the scenes as well. When they played a little bit around Nashville, I've been active in helping them on tour. So I figured I'd come on here today and just talk touring and see what you guys have questions about. And if you're on here, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell me who you are, where you're from, what you do, what you want to know about touring, and let's talk. So I made a list here, just some bullet points to go over. But like I said earlier, in that survey that I put out this week, over a dozen of you have mentioned something about wanting to be more involved touring, whether that's touring as an artist or touring as a tour manager. So I figured it'd be a great thing to talk about. And so I guess if you've seen the Tuesday Ask post, you've seen all the great questions in there today. And I replied to one with a more detailed overview of what it's like to be a tour manager. So I figured I'd just start there and kind of explain everything I was talking about. So if you want to be a tour manager or go on tour as an artist, you're going to have to know how to settle after a show, which means you're going to have to know how to, you're going to sit down with the people that work at the venue, and you have to know how to settle the show and get your money. And so to do that, you have to know how to read contracts. You have to know what the deal is, so that you know that you're getting the appropriate amount of money. So I mentioned in my reply to Rebecca's post about guarantees, percentages, bonuses, and overages. So a guarantee, let's say the contract says that you are guaranteed, let's say $1,000 for this show. And when you sign the contract, that's what you agree upon. So settling a guarantee is pretty easy. They write you a check for $1,000, unless there's a deposit or all that. But to keep it basic, they'll write you a check for the guaranteed amount, and that's about it. But if you do percentages, so the contract might say we'll give you $500, and then you get 80% of the box office money. So a deal like that, it's up to you really to draw a crowd, because you make money based on how many people buy tickets. So that's what it means by a percentage. So guarantee is a flat rate, and percentage, you make money based on how many people buy tickets. And overages or bonuses. So you can also make money if you sell out a venue. So sometimes contracts might say you make a bonus. Hi, Lena, thank you. And I know I need to reply to your email. I will do that. And sometimes you can make bonuses if you sell out a venue. So you'll have to talk to the people at the venue when you're settling. You'll have to know what the capacity is, how many tickets were sold, how many or how much of that could go toward your bonus. So all these things that you'll need to know before you're able to be a tour manager, just in regards to money and doing a settlement. So that's pretty much, I guess that's the basics of settling. And I wrote down festivals as well. So I think in my experience, all the festivals usually do guarantees. So you're not going to get a percentage of the tickets sold for a festival because there's so many artists coming to that festival. So usually festivals just give you a guarantee. And it's some of the venues that will go into percentages and overages and all that. So if you guys have any questions about settlements, let me know. I hope I did a good job at explaining that. And then next on my list, I have travel, lodging, renting a car. So a lot of times a tour manager is there more to keep everything organized. Bands that have, I don't want to say a smaller budget, but bands that can't afford to take a tour manager, a sound person, a merch person, which is a lot of bands, they will hire a tour manager who can do a lot of these things. So I guess what you would call the travel and lodging would be what you would call advancing a show. So you as the tour manager would call the venue and you would figure out, well, you probably already know where it is based on the contract, but you would talk about where you could load in, how to get to the back of the venue. Sometimes that's not as easy as it sounds. What time you should get there, what time is sound check, do you need to bring mics, do you need to bring what kind of equipment, how many mics do you need. All these little details are very important and can fall in the hands of the tour manager. So you've got to figure out what's happening at the venue. You also got to figure out how to get to the venue, how to get there on time. So travel, lodging, renting a car. This is just a little heads up for a lot of you I know are under 25, which in the U.S. you can't rent a car until you're 25. So if you want to be a tour manager, that's just something to keep in mind, that a lot of times it's the responsibility of the tour manager to rent the car and drive the artist. So that's also, it's hard to get started, I guess, right out of college if this is what you're wanting to do. Just keep that in mind. And also, if you are an artist hiring a tour manager, that's good to keep in mind as well. I also wrote down times to travel. So when I was in management, the manager that I worked under was very particular about travel times and logistics. So she would always look at flights for hours and hours to make sure she was not only getting the best deal on the price, but also the best time. So you have to remember that when artists are traveling, they're traveling with most likely a lot of luggage because they're going to travel for a longer tour, and they're traveling with instruments, and they're traveling with sound equipment. So it's not like you're booking a flight for yourself to go to the beach or whatever. You got to keep in mind that this is going to be a bigger crew with a lot of luggage, and you have to keep in mind the baggage fees. So if you're flying on an airline that doesn't give you free baggage, you got to think about how many instruments. Do you have to buy tickets for those instruments? So many little logistics that you have to keep in mind for touring. And times to travel. So when you're booking flights, if your show might not be till 7 or 8, but you might let's see, you might be first on the bill of the show, which means you will sound check last, so that the mics and everything will be set up for you when you play first on the show. So you got to figure out what time you got to be at sound check, and then you got to figure out how long it's going to take to get from the airport to the venue. And so even though the show's at 7 or 8, you're going to have to get there probably at 3 or 4. So you're not going to want to book a 1 o'clock flight, even though that sounds like you've got plenty of time for an evening show. So maybe you want to fly in the day before. So all like little meticulous details just to think about when you're booking a tour. Let's see. Merch. So a lot of times merch also falls under the umbrella of everything that a tour manager might do. Like I said earlier, some people can afford to have a separate person for tour managing, sound, merch, but a lot of people use the same one tour manager for everything. So for merch, you are, thanks Lena, so you're gonna be relying on someone most likely to help you settle your show for your money. They're going to need to help you with your travel logistics. They're going to need to help you with sound check and merch. So merch gives me a headache, but so I guess I will start with getting merch to the venues. So if you are not driving to a local venue, traveling with merch can be a headache. So what I suggest is shipping your merch to the venue several days in advance. So first you got to figure out how much merch you want to ship, because it's not like you can just go out to the car and get more if you run out after the show. So figure out how many shows you've got, figure out how much or how the capacity for each venue is. I can't remember the percentages we use, but based on the capacities, think about how much merch you might sell for each show. And then think about how you're going to get it there. Are you going to send it all out? Maybe you have 5 days or a 5-date run. So maybe you send a box of all your t-shirts and your CDs to that first venue. Or maybe you have a 10-date run and you send half your merch to the first and half your merch somewhere else along the way. So again, all of this is just a whole bunch of little details that you got to keep track of when you're on tour. So shipping to venues. Another thing about that is sometimes there isn't someone at a venue all day, every day to accept a shipment. So when I was in management, part of my job would be to just call the people in charge on the contract, whoever was listed on the contract, and say, here's the address I have for your venue. We're going to ship some merch ahead of the show. I just wanted to let you know where is the best place to send this. And a lot of times they would say, thanks for calling. You should actually send that to our office, which is 2 blocks away. So lots of little things to learn about. So you'll ship the merch to the venue, and then you got to make sure someone is there. I know, Lena, when I started thinking about this topic today after I wrote that reply, I was like, wow, I kind of know a lot about this. So yeah, the lady I worked with was, she retired in December, but she was a manager for 20 some years. So she knew every little trick in the book, and some of it was very meticulous, but very useful things to know, like the shipping to the venues thing. So you got to make sure someone is there to accept your merch and hold on to it and make sure it gets to the venue on the right night of the show. And then you got to have someone to sell it. So if your tour manager is busy maybe doing sound, then he can't be or she can't be at the table selling merch. So who's going to watch your merch? Who's going to sell your merch? Who's going to keep track of all the merch you sell? So another part of my job, sorry guys, I get like out of breath. This is so weird. I get out of breath when I like speak loudly for these live videos, but sorry. So, merch. So part of my job at the management company was to make merch tables. So just a spreadsheet that had all the merch. So a lot of times that was like t-shirts, the size of t-shirts, the colors of the t-shirts, all the albums, all the vinyls, and then whoever is in charge of selling it will have to count in how much they have at the start of the night, and then the prices of each item, and then how much is sold, and then how much money is made, and then a lot of times venues ask for a certain percent of the merch that you sell. So usually it's like 90% to the artist and 10% to the venue. Sometimes 80-20, but not really often. So at the end of the night, if you made $100, when the tour manager settles out, she's going to have to give $10 to the venue for that. So lots of things to know. It all comes back to being able to read and understand contracts and know what the deal is. So merch. So I'm kind of skipping around. I'm just trying to think of how the whole night, whole tour goes. So like I said, if the tour manager is busy doing sound or whatever else, you're going to need someone to sell merch. So a lot of times that's when you can ask the venue. Usually they have someone that they can call that will volunteer to do it for you, or you can just pay them $50, or you can pay them in a t-shirt to sell your merch. But again, that's something that you want to line up before you get to the venue and need someone to do that for you. Excuse me. Let's see, in festivals. So I talked about shipping merch to venues beforehand. A lot of times festivals require that you do this. Because think about the bigger festivals. If all the artists showed up with their merch and just like handed it off to the merch tent, that would be crazy. So a lot of times festivals will ask you to ship your merch in advance, with the count-in sheet, with all your pricing. So just lots of things to keep track of. Do you guys have any questions for me? I'm trying to think of what else I might be able to share with you guys. See if I can open up the ask thread and see what else was in that today. Shannon, if you're still here, thanks for tuning in. I can see there's a couple of y'all on here, but I can't see who you are, so let me know in the comments who you are and if you've ever been on a tour or if you're wanting to go on tour or be a tour manager. Let's see what else is in this thread today. So Sarah asked that she is always looking to go on tour doing merch or entry-level things, for a resume builder, network and meet people. How did you land your first gig? So I kind of talked about what I did at the beginning of the stream, but yeah, just to sell merch. So that's kind of like what I was just talking about. A lot of times venues and artists and managers need these people, but they are the last people on their mind. Someone to sell merch is highly needed, but very much on the bottom of list of the to-do list. So I would recommend reaching out to local venues and just saying, hey, if you ever need someone to sell merch, I am around and here's my contact number. Feel free to reach out. I'm available. Or if you have any connections with local artists, let them know as well so that they can keep you in mind. They might not need you immediately, but I'll tell you that it's something that when you need, it's stressful, and it's always good to know at least have a list of people that you can refer to. Let's see. Oh, yes, let's see. So I also talked about, in my reply to Rebecca, about making itineraries. So this was something that I did um, at the management company. So I wasn't a tour manager, but I worked at the management company. And so it just depends on the artist situation, what tour manager they hire. It's a little different for everyone, but in our situation, I would make the tour itineraries. So whoever was booking flights, which sometimes was me, sometimes was the lady I worked with, sometimes was a tour manager, sometimes it was the venue. All that would come to me, and I would put it in a tour itinerary, which was just a Google Doc, and you can download my my free template. It's on my blog somewhere. I also linked to it in today's thread. But just make a detailed itinerary, like everybody's flights, who's coming from where, who's going where are the layovers, what time zones, like luggage fees, like are there any luggage fees, and then what to do when they arrive. Is there a car that they're going to rent? Is someone going to pick them up? Who is that? Where are they going to go? Are they going to go to the hotel? Or are they going to go straight to sound check? Are they going to go to an interview? Like, where do they go after that? And just lay out every single day. And at the end of the day, I would always include contacts and like the hotel info, the address, the phone number, the venue address, the phone number. Let's see, anything that had anything to do with what they were doing that day. If they were going to an interview, I would include the contacts at the bottom, the media contacts. I would include, if they're going, maybe they're in New York City and they're going to go, I don't know, where would they go? Maybe they're going to Relics in New York City. How do you get to Relics? How do you get up to the right floor? Who do you ask for? Who do you call if you have problems? Where do you park the van? How do you get the instruments out? It's crazy. All sorts of things. Let's see. Oh yeah. Another thing I mentioned was as a tour manager, you can get bonus points with the artist manager if you send an update at the end of every day. So the managers are sitting wherever they're located all day working on tour logistics and everything. And when artists are on the road, they're busy and they don't have time to check in with the manager. So as a manager, you're just sitting here like, well, I wonder if they made it to this place on time. I wonder how this went. I wonder if they got to their interview. I wonder this. I wonder how many tickets sold. I wonder how many people bought tickets at the door. So many questions. You work so hard on these tours, and then you're just kind of left out of it. So if you're a tour manager, it's great to check in with the manager and just let them know how the day went, how much money they made in merch, how the show went, how the artist felt about the venue. Like, is it a venue that they might want to do again, or is it one that you need to cross off the list? Let's see. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. I'm just going through this Tuesday Ask thread that I shared earlier. There's some great questions about touring in there. Brianna says, ultimately, I want to be a tour manager, but that is, of course, one of those positions you work your way up to. I figured being a merchandise manager for bands on the road is a good way to get that experience and learn the ropes. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but yes, doing merch is a great way to get to know the people who work behind the scenes for the artists, and to be involved in an important way. Even if you don't feel important selling merch, know that you are. I've even, I'll call my best friend who lives in North Carolina now and say, hey, do you want to sell merch for us? And she she's great at selling merch when I ask her. So, yes, doing that is a great way to meet the people that matter that you can eventually keep in contact with, not eventually keep in contact with, but keep in contact with to eventually hopefully open some doors for you to do that down the road. And like I was mentioning earlier, it is hard to get into tour management when you're just starting out in the music business because a lot of times it involves renting a car, and you can't do that until you're 25 in the States. So it's something that's hard to just jump in and be all in charge from the beginning. And it's also hard to get hired on a tour to do merch only because there's only a limited amount of bands that have the budget to hire someone to just sell merch with them. That's an extra person on the flights or on the bus or on the van. It's an extra hotel room. It's extra meals. So it's hard. It's hard to get into. But like you said, if you just start selling merch at your local venues, you'll get to know the right people. You'll get experience. You'll see how the numbers work. You'll see how the people work. And that's a really good way to get into it. See, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Shannon, so I don't know if you're still on here or not, but you asked earlier about hiring an intern to help with tour logistics. Just reading your whole post. Hold on. So yeah, hiring an intern, it could be helpful, it could not be helpful, just because there are so many little details to know about. So maybe you figure out your game plan, and then instead of hiring an intern to do these tour logistics for you, you hire an intern to create your merch sheets or create your itineraries. Just say, will you be my intern and create my itinerary for you? I will send you all my flights and all my hotels. I just need you to lay it out for me. But yeah, like you can tell, I've been on here for almost a half hour, so there's a lot of little details that go into touring. So I think hiring an intern could be risky if you if you know what I mean. So Olivia says, what the heck do I pack? I'm interning under to a manager for 2 weeks in August. I don't know. There's nothing special to it. What area are you going to? Is it going to be hot or cold? Make sure you've got some shoes that you're comfortable walking around in. You're going to be going backstage, unloading. You're going to be going all over the place on a show day. So just make sure you're comfortable. Other than that, it's not too tricky. So yeah, I think that's what I got for you guys today. Unless you have any questions, I'm here to hang out and help. Let's see. Awesome. Well, if that, I think I got all these comments. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you tune in live, and if you're watching the replay, I hope this all makes sense. And if you have any questions, if you're watching the replay, just drop them in the comments, and I will do my best to help answer them. So, hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and I will talk to you soon.